Hey y'all, it's your girl Ro here, and I want to welcome you to Baking Up Christmas 2022. It's day 15, and this is Baking Up Christmas. Now let's get into the video. So in today's video, I'm going to teach you how to make these sweater hat candy apples. Starting off with the supplies, I'm using almond bark candy coating, and I'm using Granny Smith apples. For dipping them in the candy coating, I'm just going to do a simple wash, rinse, and dry. Also, you're going to need some apple sticks and decorated straws. This is a 6.5 in length and a 5.0 for these straws to fit over these particular sticks. I'm using a silicone mold. This is the impression mold, and this is another one that I'm going to be using to create this design. I'm going to be using a holly mold. You're going to need some scissors and my handy dandy Ateco scraper. I'm using Wilton red fondant and Wilton green fondant, and you're going to need a rolling pin. Starting off with the almond bark. Now, when you get your almond bark, it tells you to melt for 1 minute. That's what I do. Once that minute is up, I take it out and I just maneuver the candy coating around and then put it back in for another 30 seconds. When it comes out, it looks like this, depending on how high you have your microwave. But you want to give it a good stir and allow your glass bowl or plastic container, the heat from that, allow it to help melt down those almond bark blocks or melting chips, whatever it is that you'll be using. So as I continue to stir, I'm going to plate, and if it has any chunks in it, just place it back in your microwave for another 10 or 15 seconds. Once that's done, now your candy coating is completely melted and it's nice and smooth, ready for dipping, but allow it to sit for about 5 minutes before dipping to prevent any elephant skin. Now let's prepare our apple. And I'm using again a 6.5 by 5.0 apple stick, which allows the decorated straws to fit over, and I'm just inserting them. And when you insert, make sure you take a paper towel and dry the top of it just to make sure no juice is sitting at the top of your apple. Now you want to get you a silicone mat. If you don't have one, then use parchment paper and bring back your candy coating, and you're ready to dip. And you just go in and do a full rotating turn to completely cover your apple, and make sure you get all the excess candy coating off or chocolate off. Scrape the bottom and then place it onto your silicone mat or wax paper. And you want that to dry completely before you move on to your next step. Now we're going to make the holly leaf. Using this mold, you want to start off with the red fondant and place that right into the cavity as you see here. And you're just going to pull it back and insert just enough to fill in that part of the cavity of your mold to create that particular part of the design. Then you're going to take your green fondant and take just enough, which I'm going to just roll it and then place it over the whole thing. Fill that cavity in. Make sure it's full so that you can get that complete design. I'm going to take my scraper and I'm just going to slide it right above that and take off any extra that's overlapping that cavity. You want to make sure it's pressed back in there and make sure it's smooth. And now it's time to release it from its mold. And here you have your holly leaf design. Now you can prep these days in advance when making these particular apples. Now that my apple is completely dry, we're going to move on to decorating the hat. Now this is a impression mold. This is by Marvelous Molds. I love these particular molds. I will leave the links to these and all the supplies in the description box below this video, so be sure to check it out. Now, taking your fondant, I'm rolling a nice little log, and I do have a thick piece of fondant, and you would just want to press it. Take your rolling pin and then begin to roll it out until that cavity is full. It's fully covered, because you want to get the whole impression of this particular design from this mold. Now, this mold do have like grooves around the perimeter, the top perimeter. And as I'm rolling my rolling pin, you're going to see that extra fondant just come off, and you just take it off. So as you roll, you're actually thinning out your piece. So anything that's extra, it's just going to smooth itself out. Just continue to roll and pull off any extra that's overlapping this particular mold. So you're going to see me continue to roll, and what I'm doing is making sure that my fondant is thinned out good enough and not too thin to where you can see through your fondant. You don't want that, but I'm thinning it out to get all the extra fondant from this cavity. And also you can see me rolling this back off, and look at that, just coming off onto the rolling pin. And that's what I mean about the little grooves that is going around this perimeter, the perimeter of this particular mold. And I'm just making sure that all my fondant is in this cavity. And you don't want a thick piece, so just make sure you keep rolling until you smooth it out. You're going to flip it over, pull a corner, and then just pull down your fondant. Also, you don't need to add anything to this mold. This is a great quality mold, okay? And again, I am using Wilton's fondant, so it works well, or any other fondant works well with this particular mold. So once you pull your fondant down, roll it back gently, and then you just want to set this piece over to the side. Now I am using a medium-sized apple, which is going to require another piece, but you're only going to roll out a half piece, and that's what you're going to see me do here. Now, if you're using or dipping lunch size apples, then you may only need to just use this one piece. But for the record, if you have larger apples, it may require you to use 1.5 pieces, or you use 2 pieces, depending on the size of the apple. All right. So once that's done, now it's ready to once that's done, you're ready to decorate. Okay. Do not prep these pieces ahead of time. You need for them to be soft, like you see here. And the braided part is going to be my front. So once you apply your piece, you don't need to add anything to it. The fondant will be soft and moist enough to apply to your apple. So I'm taking the second piece, lining it up with the decorations, and if it's anything overlapping, just take your scraper or a small paring knife and cut off that extra piece. Just make sure it's lined up neatly, and then start to mend that section together. It's going to be 2 parts you mend together, and then begin to fold that bottom into the bottom of the apple, and then sit it down, and then fold in the top. And that should lay down perfectly, depending on the size of your apples. All right. If you have smaller apples, then you may have to cut off that extra top. All right. Now I'm taking my mold, and I call these spots, these little ball spots that you see here. If you have any ball spots and the design is gone, just take the mold of that particular design and just press in, and then it will come back out. All right. And on the back where I laid the apple down, as you see right here, I'm going to take the mold and do the same thing on this side. It just gets rid of those ball spot areas that when you lay your apple down or you're holding it too long, it, take away the design. But it's back. And now we're ready to move on to the next step. Now, using this other mold is the part that I'm going to use the rim around the hat. And again, I'm rolling out my little roll. And the reason why I use a thick piece of fondant so that this can cover the entire cavity of the mold. And as you see, once again, this also have a little rim around the top perimeter, which once you roll that rolling pin, it just takes that fondant off so nicely. So I'm just smoothing it out to make sure it's thinned out, a nice thin piece. It's going to be thick, but not too thick and not too thin, because you don't want a super thick piece to go on your apple. You want it to look natural looking as possible. All right. So once that's done, flip it over and begin to pull it back. And this is the rim piece. And I'm also going to have to make another piece. And this is what it looks like. All right. And then you apply it right to your apple. And again, if it doesn't stick, then just apply a nice thin layer, of water. But it should be able to just adhere to the other piece of fondant. All right. And just gently smooth that on, tap that on there. And then I'm going to mold out another piece to cover the back. So I'm only going to use half, and I'm just going to size it up to see how much I actually need. And this is just enough. I'm just going to cut off a small portion from this piece and then place it onto my apple. And again, do not make these pieces ahead of time. You need your fondant to be soft and flexible to adhere to the apple. All right. So again, tapping it down. You also want to tap these areas at the bottom and at the top of the rim that you see right here I'm doing. You just want to press those in so it can be nice and neat and look natural. Okay. And this is what it come out to look like. A nice little sweater hat. All right. Comment down below if you are enjoying this part of the video, because I enjoyed creating it for you. All right, let's move on to the next step. All right, so we're going to create the ball. Now, there's many ways you can create the ball. You can spike it with a toothpick, but I'm going to be using scissors. So I'm sticking an apple stick through here just to create a hole to just place over the straw. And I'm taking that little extra off the straw there. And again, as many ways you can spike the little ball. You can also use an extruder and make those strings and put it on top. But I'm just going to take my scissors and go up each row. I'll make a row of this and just cut going up, as you see I'm doing here. And I'm going to start over into another row and just cut all the way up till I get to the top, and then start on another row. And that's how it's going to turn out. And this is just a quick way, my version of just creating the little furry top, the furry ball top of the hat. And you're just going to keep doing that until it's completely spiked. And that's how you create the little furry part at the top. And there you have your little sweater hat. All right. Simple and easy. Simple and easy. And now we're just going to add the holly leaf. And I'm just going to adhere it with some water. Just applying a small part on the back right there, and just place it right on top of the hat. Hold it so that it can stick. And once it's stuck to that hat, it's going to stay there. If you don't feel comfortable, then you can add a little dab of chocolate to the back of the holly leaf and then add it onto the hat. but it adheres well with water. And here you have your sweater hat candy apple. So if you have enjoyed this video, comment down below letting me know. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It's your girl Ro about to go, but I'll see you all in the next video.